a lot of people think just because it's vegetarian, it's less complicated or doesn't require as much technique, and I think that's a complete fallacy. Just thinking about the work and preparation that goes into what's on the plate, it's something to be appreciated for sure.
So far, I've tasted 3 vegetarian dishes carefully designed by Chef Paul. Even though those of you watching can't taste them through your screens, seeing the plating and hearing my flavor descriptions, I hope you can get a sense of just how amazingly varied and interesting this food is. When preparing vegetarian cuisine, it takes a tremendous amount of skill to coax out a full range of flavors without the help of any meat products.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
We may start with the first course, which is the tomato.
Okay.
It's dried. On top we have the basil mayonnaise and a cream of the tomato. Then here comes nitrogen, frozen champagne.
Amazing.
And the sauce is a tea of the tomato with basil oil.
So enjoy it.
Wow. Can you tell me about the idea for this dish?
I love tomatoes, so I talked with my team. I want a fresh starter. I love also champagne, and so we tried to connect champagne with tomato.
Oh, okay. And I think it's very interesting to think about how you transform the ingredient in many, many different ways. And I think for me, the first thing is when you take a look at this dish, it's very bright in color. And I think the contrast in the color is everything. There's this very fresh aroma. I smell tomato, but I also smell basil. And I think it's nice. It has lots of textures just when you're looking at it. Liquid, and then you have this, and then it's frozen. And so I better eat it before it melts, right? Yeah. Okay, so here we go. The flavor of the tomato is very, very concentrated, and I think it's really accented by all the additional elements with it, the freshness of the basil. There's a really nice sweet element, and again, the tomato is incredibly tender. It just melts in your mouth, and you have all this kind of liquid aromas of concentrated tomato with the little freshness of the oil, and just that little crunch and that little temperature change with the champagne frozen bits on the top, and I have that little kind of nuttiness from the pine nuts in there as well. I think a lot of people think light. They think maybe not as much flavor, but this is very, very, very packed full of flavor.
Now we might continue with the yellow beet. Underneath it's marinated. On top we have fermented mustard seeds with a cream of mirabelle, which is a plum.
Plums, okay.
Yes. And underneath there is a tartare of the yellow beet. And on top you can see oxidized yellow beet, and now comes the borscht.
Ah,
It's
amazing.
It's hot.
Temperature also very, very, very important in fine dining such as this. First course was chilled, second course is hot. So borscht, the liquid is a traditional soup. I know in Poland they use like borscht, and also in Russia it's borscht. What is the base for the soup?
It's all about the beets.
The plating is very stunning because it's very, very vivid colors with the marigold petals and the beets we saw from the farm. This is not just a random leaf, it is one of the
one of the beet leaves.
Yeah.
I want to show you that we use really everything. It's not just a word.
Okay. I think what's really interesting is that there are, I count minimum 4 uses of the beets in this type of preparation. So you have the beet leaves, you have the beet wrappings, you have the beet tartare, and then you also have the oxidized beet. I think for me, the flavor is sweet from all the beets. There's a little bit of texture from the accompaniment here. The outside layer of the shaved beet that's cut into this little vessel for the tartare on the inside just gives lots of layers of textural kind of fun elements that are playing in my mouth, and the oxidized beet just gives a different hint of a different beet flavor, and even the texture of the leaf gives a little bit of grassiness to here, and that's all amalgamated by the consommé here from the borscht in here. The smell is just very rich.
Wild mushrooms, their flavors are amazing. You smell it, you taste it,
yeah,
and it's unbelievable, really.
也许你会以为我们这一道菜是 kind of like 杏鲍菇类的东西. It looks like that, but it's not. It's wild mushrooms, porcini mushrooms or Steinpils, which is very, very, very well known across Europe. It's really incredible, rich, full mushroom flavor that it's hard to describe. So try some wild mushrooms. What are these again?
It's the crunch
okay.
from the Steinpils.
没想到它可以还把这个是的香菇弄干，然后炸过，变成这种黑黑的，也是一种不同的口感。A really surprising bite for me. Porcini mushroom is incredibly tender, but it's really infused with this full mushroom flavor, and there's the nutty bits of the sunflower seeds kind of popping through here. Even more interesting, it's not just texture of sunflower seeds, there's also the little bits of the blackberry. So the little blackberry kind of, the little pops of flavor in there, adding a little bit of a kind of dried fruit element in there to balance the kind of nuttiness, and then there's the earthiness and the woodsiness of the mushrooms. So this dish is on the seasonal menu, is that right? So when will you stop serving this menu of these ingredients?
I think we have only 1 month because we have to look about the weather. Now it's okay, but it could change in 1 or 2 weeks. We use also not cultured blackberry, wild blackberry,
okay.
and so that's more deep in the flavor.
This is so yummy.
Yeah, when I tasted it the first time, I started really to cry. I think,
Yeah.
wow.
In Europe, mushrooms are truly nature's best gift in autumn. So far, I've tasted 3 vegetarian dishes carefully designed by Chef Paul. Even though those of you watching can't taste them through your screens, seeing the plating and hearing my flavor descriptions, I hope you can get a sense of just how amazingly varied and interesting this food is. When preparing vegetarian cuisine, it takes a tremendous amount of skill to coax out a full range of flavors without the help of any meat products. So, Chef draws from a wide array of cooking techniques to transform any single ingredient into a multitude of flavors and textures. The result? Every bite on the plate is full of delicious surprises. Our next dish coming up has apparently received consistent wows from guests dining here.
So if you take a look at this is definitely an ode to the carrot. So I remember when we were at the farm, we were pulling carrots as well. So this is the carrot on the plate. All these little extra, it's been dressed up. It has all these garnishes on the side.
A single beautifully presented carrot is what's on the plate. The chef clearly wants our attention fully focused on the taste of carrot. This is a daring approach. The quality of the carrot and the flavor pairings must be perfection to be presented so boldly. Chef Paul is really pushing the envelope on our notions of vegetarian cuisine.
I think one ingredient that people watching might be very interested to learn about is the daylily.
Yeah, I love the daylily.
Is that a typical thing that people would eat in Austria?
I'm not really sure, because we work with daylily 3 years.
Okay.
So we figure out how it's the best for us. We think it's pickled.
Actually, in Taiwan, in Asia, this is a very commonly used ingredient. They dry it and then they tie it into knots after they rehydrate it, and they make vegetarian cuisine with it. I'm just gonna taste this on its own. That's delicious. 有一点甜甜，有一点辣辣的 but 酸酸的. How have you decided to handle the carrot in this way?
We tried a lot of things with the carrot. One of my co-workers comes and, hey, why we wouldn't try it with fire? I told him, let's do it, and I think the taste is amazing. Carrot,
it's melt in your mouth tender, but it has structure to it, and I think that kind of carrotini flavor you get from the carrot is really accentuated and highlighted, but it has this very smooth, lovely, round, buttery kind of almost flavor on the outside. Because the moisture has been removed a little bit, it really concentrates the flavor of the carrot. What is wrapped around the outside of the carrot?
It's dehydrated. So we have a lot of different textures who make this dish very complex.
你看这个很细，我用我的手在这边煎一下。这是萝卜，它已经是晒干了，然后再 hydrated 绕在这个外头。Chef is saying that he's really trying to work with the different textures that you can get from the carrot here. So you have the smooth puree, you have the texture of the carrot itself that's been roasted and then grilled
you have to know different textures have different tastes. So we try to explore
All the different possibilities.
in harmony to the plates.
Yeah.
So many different cooking techniques have been applied to this single carrot, showcasing the creative genius that is the hallmark of Michelin-starred cuisine. It's no wonder that Chef Paul has won over the hearts of so many meat-eating guests. Patrons come here to dine on healthy, innovative dishes that surpass their expectations.
Fava bean.
Fava beans, yeah, it's an old sort. It's a forgotten sort. I love this fava beans. It looks like cannelloni,
Yeah.
but it isn't a pasta.
It's not pasta.
No, it's
Okay.
not pasta.
So what is the outside
So
made
it's
out of?
total gluten-free.
Okay.
And we wanted to create a wonderful dish with fava beans in different textures
Okay.
and with artichokes, because we have very beautiful artichokes in Austria also.
Ah, okay.
Here we have really what special wild garlic.
How have you prepared the wild garlic?
That's a secret.
Secret. Okay, okay. You need to keep some secrets.
We are on TV.
Yeah. Okay. What I'm really excited about is this cannelloni, which looks like pasta, but it's not pasta. So I'm gonna dig in here. I think 很特别的就是，如果你没有告诉我里头是没有肉，我不会知道，因为吃出来的这种鲜味，好像等于是像吃肉的这种很 satisfying 的感觉。里头这个是模仿 pasta， 但是不是用 pasta 做，里头的 stuffing almost like 卤肉饭上的那种碎肉 in there，but 其实 it's actually only the 香菇。I think the flavor for me is very, very rich and kind of woodsy. There's a nice freshness that's blooming in my mouth too, but also the broad bean or the fava has a very nutty, intense, but also fresh flavor at the same time.
Do you know how many fava beans you need for 1 kilo fava beans?
I don't know.
7 kilo. Yeah, and it needs 1 hour and 30 minutes to prepare the fava beans. Some people always think vegetables are very
Easy to
easy
cook.
and cheap.
Yeah.
1 kilo fava beans cost me 48 euro.
Ah.
It's more than a fillet.
Okay. 主厨刚刚提出来就是很有意义的。A lot of people think just because it's vegetarian, it's less complicated or doesn't require as much technique, and I think that's a complete fallacy. Just thinking about the work and preparation that goes into what's on the plate, it's something to be appreciated for sure.
Chef Paul wants to give us something to think about. Seeking the highest quality ingredients to create the best quality dishes is so important and well worth the price. Consider the time the farmer spends planning and then growing the ingredients, then the effort the chef and his entire team spend to create and then cook a dish. Layer upon layer of all these careful details is what results in this masterful plate of food. Don't you think it's worth it?
我觉得他们的 plating is 相当漂亮，好像高级的这种 elegant 雅致的 garden， 因为有这些黑的圆圈，然后旁边又有一条的。So when you do the plating, you really have to think about the geometric composition. And once we dig in there, you can see that the inside is a beautiful creamy cheese color. The flavor is 很蓬松的，软的，但是也有口感，好像在吃一个 cloud 一样。It's just being fluffy. It's very, very, very fluffy. I think for me, the flavor of this particular dessert is quite interesting because it's not overly sweet, and I think there's a real nice balance between the tanginess of the sheep's milk that's in there with a lot of the tart elements. With the sour cherry, you get the cherry aroma, but you don't get all the extra sweetness that from regular sweet cherries. And it's balanced very interestingly with this little bit of crumble here, which powder made from the pit of the cherry that's cracked and then extracted in oil, and then with maltodextrin bound into this powder. Just really interesting textural elements. You get the creamy, you get the smooth, you get the silky, you get a little bit of crunch, there's the tuile in there, and you get all these different flavors that even though the dessert is technically sweet, it has so many different layered nuances in here.
So yummy. Having eaten 6 of Chef Paul's masterpieces, I am so full and most importantly, so satisfied. Each dish was completely different from the next, and Chef created so many flavors I had never tasted before, even from familiar vegetables. There are only 4 Michelin-starred vegetarian restaurants in the world. Here in Europe at Tian, one of the best, I've truly learned just how elegant, innovative, and delicious vegetarian cuisine can be. Chef Paul isn't strictly vegetarian himself. He also enjoys eating seafood. 9 years ago, though, due to heart disease, he changed his eating habits and began to focus on food quality and health. Regardless of whether it's meat-based cooking or vegetarian cuisine, Chef Paul believes that foods that are naturally grown and produced, avoiding things like genetic modification and growth hormones, are good foods worth eating. This is the philosophy that he wants to share with all his guests, readers, and us, the viewers. Thank you, Chef Paul, for your warm and gracious hospitality. I'm headed off now for a special little project. Follow me and you'll see exactly what I'm planning.
I had a delicious meal at Restaurant Tian with Chef Paul Ivich, and he was very kind and gave me one of his cookbooks. And especially me liking to browse markets and wanting to use something seasonal, I thought I might try making one of the recipes from his book to just, really enjoy the atmosphere and see the true taste of Vienna. So let's go into the market and let's take a look at what's in season, what's fresh today, follow his lead, and try to use everything. Oh, so you see already here we have Steinpilze, which are the mushrooms that he used. 这两个都有看到 in the menu. Oh, interesting tomatoes down here. I think what's interesting, there are just lots of different tomatoes. There are these long ones, there are smaller ones, and of course these kind of Campari tomatoes. Actually, in 欧洲，这些番茄不是算水果，是当咸的 preparation, savory cooking. I just want to point out to everybody, in Taiwan, 通常番茄 and stuff like that is off the vine, but in 欧洲 and everywhere else, 他们是带这个梗子在这边卖，因为可以保持新鲜，而且你可以看到它原来长的是怎么样。But 这种通常是价钱稍微贵一点 ，but it's definitely very fresh. It keeps longer, and then it's just a beautiful presentation. We found somebody hiding in the corner here. We have a giant kale. Kale 这个是很营养的东西，但是通常是叶子都剪掉卖，但是这个好像特别新鲜，在这边找到，把它放回去吧。Another thing I just want to point out that you might not have seen before, this is called Romanesco. It's a green type of cauliflower family, 好像像菜花类的, but it's 绿的. It's beautiful, it's very nutty when you cook it, and then it keeps its beautiful green color. So Romanesco is definitely something super yummy. And there's just one more thing I see over here that you may not have seen before. Artichoke. So this is called 朝鲜蓟 and in 冷带的地方这是相当common 的东西，但是是很短的季节 and 其实是跟向日葵 it's kind of relative here. So this is actually 一朵花，然后花开完了已经过了不能吃，但是这是还没有成熟的，然后你就把很多这个削掉，然后吃 the inside. And actually at Restaurant Tian, one of the dishes had 朝鲜蓟.
I've taken a look around and made my choice. Can you guess what I'm going to use for my main ingredient?
Did you guess which vegetable I picked from the market? It ended up being this beautiful cabbage. I think for me, part of traveling is also experiencing the food, not only in restaurants, but in the comfort of your own home. So whenever I'm traveling these days, a lot of times I don't stay in hotels. I prefer to stay in an apartment or a rental home because why? There's a kitchen. So you can often cook things for yourself, buy seasonal things that are the best at the market, and try making them at home as well. I'm gonna cook something very special today. Chef Paul from Tian gave me a cookbook, his lovely cookbook. And I've looked through and selected one of the recipes that I think is gonna be really delicious. I love his approach to fresh vegetarian food. So I picked the dish here using roasted cabbage with a beautiful goat cheese sauce. And we're gonna see how this works today. So let's get started in the kitchen.
I've selected cabbage specifically because you can find it easily in Taiwan. Today's dish is very easy to make, so if you're interested, I hope you'll try cooking it at home. Okay, here we go.
We are going to roast it in a little bit of salt and olive oil, and then we're going to use this beautiful beets. So beets we remember seeing on the farm. Today we have a lovely red beet here. The last item here. This is a little bit unusual. It's cheese, so it's 羊奶做的 cheese. A lot of people 会想到这种羊做的 cheese, it's 有这种羊骚味, but this is very, very, very fresh, just put together. So it doesn't really have a strong lamb taste at all. Otherwise, it has a just very, very creamy goat cheese feeling in there, which is going to be perfect you need a little kind of something a little strong to balance the creamy nature of the cabbage. So we're going to use this today. So the first step is our beautiful cabbage. And how does Chef Paul transform this? He takes it and he's going to roast it. What we're gonna do is, you can see this beautiful shape on the inside. We really wanna use the shape of the cabbage to give this beautiful presentation. We're gonna put it on the plate. I saw the picture inside the cookbook. It's a really nice presentation and you can think about it. So the technique here, we're going to slit it just a little bit here, just to cut through. And 这个我看的觉得蛮惊讶的，因为高丽菜会剥成一块块的，或是切碎，然后但是他们是整 the whole thing roasting it. So we're gonna put this away a little bit, and we are going to deal with this later. So wrap this baby up. We're gonna put this into the oven. Okay?
The cabbage is going to roast in the oven at 200 Celsius for about 2.5 hours. While it's in there, we can prep some of the other parts of the dish.
Okay, so I'm gonna cut a little bit more of the beets, and what I find interesting is for our cabbage, after you cook the cabbage, it's gonna get nice and roasted, so it's gonna be a very, very, very soft texture, I think. And as a result, you need a little bit of contrast. So adding a little bit of something that's pickled, that's a little bit of a crunch, a little bit of acid, a little bit of something sharp in there to counterbalance is gonna be a perfect garnish for our cabbage. Paul's recipe says that we are going to marinate the beets a little bit in a little bit of olive oil, a little bit of wine vinegar, and a little bit of sugar. So the beets you can really marinate as long as you like. Often when you put down all these vinegars and things like that, 它的水分会开始出来, so you can use it fresh just like that, or 你如果比较喜欢这种比较脆的 kind of 腌制的口感, 你就让它 sit maybe 5-10 minutes. What I really love about Chef Paul's recipe is the use of this goat's cheese. And personally, goat's cheese for me sometimes a very, very strong flavor, but I think it really needs that balance between the tanginess of the dairy element with the cabbage to really make this a successful dish. And especially in the recipe, it says that there's a unique technique to kind of up the level into kind of Michelin dining, taking the cheese, making it into small little balls, rolling it like this. Again, this idea of just taking the basic form of the ingredient and transforming it, I think that's a very Michelin common idea. Don't put the original thing on there. Think about how you can change the shape, how you can change the texture, how you can change the color and the flavor to really make it something delicious and different. So we're gonna put these right here. And what Chef Paul has suggested in his recipe, again, just a mix of different herbs here. So we have parsley, we have the chives, and we have the dill. So I'm just gonna chop a little bit of this. Again, 你可以用你随性喜欢的这种香料, and 这个 chives in 欧洲 is very, very, very common. So 等于是小葱，但是它的味道不辣，就是一种 kind of 香香葱葱的这种甜味. You can see here, nice and even, 很均匀的. We're gonna mix that all into here. There's a bunch of different herbs here already. So I have a mix here of the herbs, the dill, a little bit of parsley, and some of the 小葱 in here. And Chef Paul's recipe says take these little balls and we're gonna drop them in here. So check that out, how cool is that? So let's take these little balls, which have a little bit of extra flavor on here, and we're gonna set them aside. Our delicious cabbage has been in the oven for about 2 hours-ish. I've turned it off, I let it cool down a little bit. Let's go see what it looks like now. And the reason why I'm letting it cool down is because we are actually going to deal with it one more time. It's not gonna just be served straight like this. Okay, so gorgeous, beautiful, 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 beautiful. And the next thing we're gonna do is we're actually going to slice this. And a presentation in Chef Paul's recipe says that we're gonna sear this again. So I think it's a very Michelin type thing to do, to take one item, cook it one way, and then actually cook it another way. 烤过的这种它的 flavor 完全不一样 than 炒过的 ，so 因为你把它包住的，它所有的湿润的这种 moisture 都 trap 在里头。We've cut our cabbage and we're gonna take it over just to get a little sear on there. Here, again, it's roasted already, but again, we're gonna do a second step of cooking to get this a little bit seared, to get a little bit of color, and also just change the flavor a little bit. Okay, so pan is heating up, and we are gonna go just a little bit of oil. We're gonna get a nice sear on here. Pressing down on it just a little bit, make sure the surface is caramelizing. Just get that moisture to evaporate, and hopefully we're gonna get a nice color on there. Grabbing a little salt here. I can smell the aroma of the cabbage caramelizing. Ah, beautiful. Okay, and let's bring this over to our counter. As you notice in Michelin-star restaurants, the plate is very important, so we picked something that might contrast the color of this. Now, you could use any plate you want to use at home, but for me specifically, I really want to highlight the beautiful color of the cabbage, so I am taking a darker plate here. I thought the colors would work really well. Transfer this stunning cabbage . Food and eating with people can be a really powerful experience. This is my postcard from Vienna. Hope you enjoyed.
Thank you, Chef Paul, for the recipe. Now I can share this yummy dish with the entire team. All the ingredients are readily available and the cooking is easy too, so I hope some of you will give it a try at home. Vegetarian cooking can be a kaleidoscope of colors and flavors.